Hello everyone, my name is Akesh Gupta and I'm with Lightspeed Solutions. In this presentation, I'm going to introduce you to the application wizard built into IronSpeed Designer to get you started. So let's dive in. Let's start IronSpeed Designer. And of course, before you start building an IronSpeed Designer application, there is a prerequisites that you have a database already defined, which is normalized, which has all the goodies of a well-defined database like primary keys, like foreign key relationships, like all the indications whether fields are required and not or not, and so on. All these things will lead to a better application because IronSpeed relies on the data definition to read information and make some key decisions. So in order to get you guys started, you will click on File, New, Application, and the application wizard pops up. Now, if you notice, the very first thing in application wizard, of course, is just trying to show you some themes and so on. But let's actually click Next, which is the very first page of the application wizard. Now, the very first thing you have to pick is what type of design theme are you going to pick? Are you going to pick one of the classic themes, which is basically how IronSpeed started almost 10 years ago, which very much still holds true? Or are you going to go with some of the modern designs? As you can see, there are many different designs. Or the modern grid, which is their upcoming design for more themes in time to come. As long as you can select one theme from one category, you have the ability to change those themes within the category, but you cannot cross a category. Let me explain what I'm trying to share with you here. Is that if you start with a theme by the name Champagne, and down the road, for one reason or the other, you want to change it to, say, Zinfandel, you can do that just by going through the application wizard again. But in case you want to start your application with the Champagne theme today, and later you would like to go back to one of the classic themes like Everest, it is not possible. It's not that it's not possible to do it manually, it's just a lot of work. In addition, the application wizard is generating the code and the template, which are very specific to the grouping of the theme. That's why it's a bit difficult to explain why it's not possible. But at the end of the day, as long as you understand that you cannot jump themes across different groups, you're all set. So let's actually start with a champagne theme, just like that's what we were talking about. You will click on Next. And the very next thing system asks you to do is pick a database. Of course, I can pick one database, or I can click on by clicking Add Additional Servers. I'm able to allow to select multiple databases. So to begin with, most of the users starts with one application. You can specify the user or the server name. Then you can specify the username and password with which you need to connect. As you can see on the left side, IronSpeed Designer allows you to access Microsoft Access Database, SQL Azure, SQL Server Compact Edition, MySQL, as well as Oracle. For most of the folks, you probably are using an SQL Server or Access for very few, but since Microsoft SQL Server is quite popular, we're going to stick with this option. Right here, I can click on Test Connection, and I can validate whether my connectivity to the database is working well. Now, before we click on Next, there's a button here by the name Options, which I would like to point out. By clicking Options, what system shows you is, as you're making this application for the very first time, there are some settings you can select because it's a new application. Unfortunately, if you do not select these settings today, there's no way you can go back and change the settings because these settings only apply when the new applications are created for the very first time. As you can see, what style of menu do you want? Do you want the menu to be whatever defined in the style, or do you want it to be horizontal or vertical? What type of menus do you want? Do you want them to be multi-level, or do you want them to be classic with single entries? And then so on. Now, there are some settings which are in the new page, which is when a new page is getting created, what type of master page will you be using? What type of links would you be using, and so on. But the key thing here is, which is sometimes a little bit overwhelming for a lot of folks, I would not focus on new pages. My intention was to only introduce you to the new application settings, which only apply when the new application is being created. Of course, there are many videos just on the settings alone. So I'd highly recommend that you at least glance or view that video, at least to give you some idea. In this particular case, we will not change anything. I just want to introduce you to that settings or the options. So that's why I just want to bring it up. Anyway, So we are all ready to take the next step. Let's click next. Right on this screen, system shows you all the databases which are connected into your SQL server. And we have a database by the name RNSpeed, which is what we have been using for all of our training. And then in the middle section, you have page types, which right now there's no highlighted area. And then on the extreme right, you have a view of what the page looks like. So let's say, for example, we want to build a page for a customer. As soon as you select the customer page, you will see there are some forms for data entry, reporting, and mobile. Now, as we click on each of the forms, there's a brief preview of what this form would be doing on the right side. So that should give you some idea how things are going to look once you generate. Not to confuse you folks more, but for every single time you're using the application wizard and you're about to generate the pages, for every type of the page, you also have a button by the name configure. This controls what type of settings would you be using for this specific instance of application generation. I just want to make sure that everybody understands. Unless until you save these settings here, and apologize, you will be saving the settings once you make the settings changes. But every single time you are going to build or generate like an X number of pages, you can go into the configure to tweak those pages together. This way, you can save yourself some effort by not going to every single page individually. Just as an example, say for example on an ad page, we are trying to create a customer and I do not want to create any child tables under customer. So when I click on configure on the ad page, I have an option here to say what is the number of detailed table panels to generate? 3. I can say I do not want to generate any detailed tabs, and I can click on save. So right away, what I'm trying to say here is when I'm going to generate these new pages based on the tables I selected and the page types I selected, for every table where I have the page type of ad selected, ad record, system will not generate the child tables. Now, of course, this could be very overwhelming. So once again, my recommendation is to get your feet wet, start small, pick 1 or 2 tables, pick 1 or 2 forms, see what the system generates. Don't be afraid to crash this application once it's been generated and you basically have just worked on it first time, and then start another application. All I wanted to introduce here to you is the ability for you to configure all the settings to tweak the output. So long story short, let's actually move on, and we will discuss on the configuration option in another video. But for the time being, select the tables that you want to work with, select the type of pages you want to work with, and we can click on next. In case your database design was lacking some primary keys or foreign keys based on the tables that you have selected, as well as the tables which have already been selected in the prior application wizard settings, system will show you what it recommends that you add. As you can see, there's no recommendation for either primary keys or foreign keys, which basically kind of like points that our database is very well defined based on what RNSpeed has learned about our database so far. So I will not do any single thing here. Of course, if you need to add an additional virtual primary key in case system did not recognize the need, but you do realize the need, which 9 out of 10 times that is probably not going to happen because RNSpeed has been pretty good and in realizing what's missing. But if you do end up in that situation, you can add your own virtual primary keys yourself. So I'm going to click on next here. And this is where we can pick languages. Now, what does picking a language means? It really means that in order for folks to be able to look at the application, some of the labels which will be translated into their language in case that's a language they would like to pick. So, say for example, somebody who is in a different country like Netherlands, they may want to see all their titles as in their own language, not the English. So I'm going to basically go in, pick English as a default, and pick another language like Dutch for Netherlands, and at least I'm giving them the option. And by the way, the language can always be added later as well. And I will actually also show you the output as to what it produces. If you click on advanced, that is where you can control what type of format you want to use for dates and currencies and so on. And do you want them to basically look at do you want the layout to be left to right, which is more and more common, or you want, or would you like to be right to left, like in some countries, the way the form gets laid out, the fields are really listed from right to left. So we're going to actually select the basic defaults because we are here in the US here, and let's click on next. Now this is the page where certain important things have to be decided. First of all, what is the name of the application? Let's just call it My First App. Of course, if it's an application that you're trying to create for like your internal CRM, you can definitely name it a CRM or whatever name works for you. As far as the application folder is concerned, whatever location you want to generate it, you can select that. Now, IronSpeed wants this folder to not exist or be empty. So make sure if the folder exists in in like a older application, you want to rename that folder before you start the new application. Right now, IronSpeed supports 4 different types of applications, which is the website or the web application, or it can build an application for SharePoint, either 2007 and 2010. So you can select one of the 4s, and by default, more and more people are using website. So I'm going to pick website as the default. The code language, right now, there's a choice between C# and VB.NET. You can pick any one of them, and IronSpeed will generate the code appropriately. In case you change your mind later on, I can go back into the application wizard and change the code language and regenerate the application. The only thing you have to keep in mind is if you have written any custom code by overriding on the code section of the application, you will lose that code. But if you're using the IronSpeed built-in formulas, you're safe. So just want to share with you that since we have experience with both C# and VB.NET, we keep on jumping between the two. But if you have only one preference, you will set it once, and next time it will open up with the same one. As far as the .NET framework, .NET, as Microsoft .NET releases different frameworks, the versions, you can make your application compatible with whichever version you want to use. There's one thing which you must keep in mind, that the .NET framework version can only go up. You cannot bring it down, in the sense that today, if you build an application using .NET framework version 3.5, then down the road you say, okay, I would like to upgrade to 4.0. The upgrade route is available, but if you started in building a .NET Framework 4.0 application and you want to bring it down to 3.5, it will not be possible. So my recommendation is start with the .NET Framework 3.5, and based on .NET 3.5, system is sensing that the Visual Studio 2010 or 2008 will be the default Visual Studio. Now, if in case you want to have a different version of Visual Studio, the automatic link may not work, so you may have to upgrade your .NET Framework to 4.0 in case you want to pick any one of the 3 more commonly used versions of Visual Studio. So as you can see, .NET 4.0 is supported by 2010, 2012, 2013. The selection of the Visual Studio here only gives you the advantage that when you tell IronSpeed Designer to open your project in Visual Studio, it already knows which version of Visual Studio to tie with. So I'm going to leave it as 2010 with .NET 3.5. Whether you would like to, in the data access layer, generate the stored procedures, or would you like to write the code inline, you can basically select one or the other. Of course, why would you not go with the stored procedures? Sometimes DBS do not give you permissions to use stored procedures, and that's why you may have to report to inline. Under advanced, there are basically 3 options, which is what's the namespace of the application, what's the virtual directory name. These both settings are by default same as application name. If you have a reason to change the namespace or the virtual directory, you can definitely do so. But 9 out of 10 times, once again, most of the folks will not be changing them, at least for their first applications. As far as the create pages in, by default, every page created in RNSP Designer automatically creates another table, another folder by whose name is the same as the table name. But just in case you want to start creating pages in a predefined structure of folders, you need to start making the application with 1 or 2 entities, delete those folders that it creates, then go into the Windows Explorer, create the folders, and then those will be available to you right here. Since it's a new application, the folder does not exist. I do not have any options here in Create Pages in. So as you can see, for the most part, we kept every single thing standard, but I just wanted to point out a few things so that you can make some decisions. And let's click on Finish. Now, the process of going through the application wizard is quite straightforward. It may take you one or two iterations to get comfortable with it, but it works. It works very well. Of course, what my recommendation here is do not try to pick too many tables. Try to stick with very few tables and a few pages. See what it generates. Once you see what it generates, then you can realize what you miss, what you like, what you don't like. And then the best thing you can do is the way Iron Speed works, you can basically you can delete what you generated and regenerate it, which I will show you in a minute. So as you can see, by me selecting customer and other details, I was able to pick every single thing very quickly. And now if I click on the edit, as you can see under edit customer, I show the tab, which was the tab which by default it will show. Or if I click on add page, if you remember when we were clicking on the add page, I selected the option not to have any child table. And as you can see, there were no child tables. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview of the application wizard so that you can see how it uses your information to generate the application. Of course, is it the end of the application wizard? No. Every single time you now want to go and add more pages or make some changes, you will be going through the application wizard again. Now, if you have generated pages that you do not like or you want to get rid of it, all you can do is right click on it, delete it, and you're done. If you want to add more pages, you will again go into the Tools Application Wizard and follow the same path over and over again. You will go back to the pages, select more pages and more types. It will generate. If you want to change the theme, you will go to the page style, pick a different theme, and click Finish. You don't have to go through the wizard all the way to the end. You can just finish it when you feel you have made enough changes or enough decisions in the application wizard. So Finish is available almost every step of the way. As you can see, I just changed the theme from champagne to water. Of course, if you understand that we kept in the same category of the themes and my application theme has been altered. Sometimes because of CSS caching, you may be forced to press Ctrl F5 just so that the browser can clear the cache and load the new theme. In case you want to change the code language, I can go to the application wizard, go to my application section and change from C# to VB.NET, or change my .NET framework from a lower version to the higher version, change the Visual Studio Association, as well as define whether I want to change the SQL statement generation from inline to stored procedure or from stored procedure to inline. So changing Visual Studio and SQL statement generation really has no impact on anything except for the output. But the .NET framework, you cannot go down. Code language, if you move from one to the other, you will lose any customization. So there are some things you have to watch out there. So let's see if I click on it, system will regenerate the entire application using C# now, or if it was VB, it will do using VB. And system will regenerate every single thing and show me my application. So hopefully this allowed you to see that the applications can very easily be generated using application wizard. One more point which we forgot was that now if you remember, we selected multiple languages. Now when I click on this settings tab, I can select which language I want, and if I pick another code language, as you can see, all my button names and every single thing got changed, and all the tooltips got changed into the language. Of course, I do not know Dutch, so I have no idea how to pronounce it. But one of the key things which most of us get confused here is how come my entity's name didn't change? By default, the entity names are really not changed just because there's no way Iron Speed will know exactly every single thing, how to rename a label, how to rename a value. In case you want to go into that direction, you have to build your own resource files and then tie in these labels to those resource files. I believe this should give you enough information on how to use the application wizard in Iron Speed Designer. And if you have any questions, please visit Iron Speed Forum. It's an excellent source of sharing information. People ask questions, and we as MVPs love to answer them. Hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.